What's up guys, Untitled Studios here, and today we'll be doing the full review of the Bissell PowerForce Compact Turbo. And this review also applies equally to the non-turbo variant of the Bissell PowerForce Compact Upright, specifically the design with this exact body style, which would be the model 2112, 1520, and this variant, which is model number 2690. So this particular example is manufactured on the 224th day of 2019. And these particular machines come with a 6.2 amp motor. So they do use less power than the full-size Bissell uprights, which are usually, at this point in time, 8 amp motors, sometimes 10. So this particular machine does use less power than its more full-size brethren, but in practice it's not as powerful, and it does clean pretty similarly, but still not quite as overall a good machine to use when compared to the full-size uprights, unless you specifically need the compact features. So getting straight into the design and how well it actually works, this particular machine retails for anywhere from $40 to $50 depending on which variant you get, and you can often get this from Bissell's eBay shop refurbished for around $35 to $40. And for that price, it certainly is worth what they're charging for the machine, but personally, I would go ahead and spend the extra money on the full-size bagged PowerForce, which is usually $56, and I think that that experience overall is better. So if you want the TLDR, that's my opinion, but if you specifically want a compact unit, this is still a good option if you're looking for something compact and corded in that price range that still can function as a somewhat full-size upright. So this particular machine is bagless. There is no bagged variant of it, and as far as how you take care of it, this entire bin assembly is right here. The max fill line is basically right whenever it gets to this section right here, right where the wording starts. Now on some models the wording is vertical, but once the dirt gets up to about here is when you want to empty it, and you simply press this release button right here, and that unlocks the entire canister. There's a button down here that you just simply push, and that empties. I recommend emptying this outside, as you don't want to get all the fine dust and stuff back into your house, especially if you normally empty your vacuum in the kitchen. That's not a very good idea. I would recommend emptying this machine outside and just taking this whole canister outside and emptying it, and then whenever you take it inside, wipe it off with a damp cloth, the entire exterior of it, so that way there's no dust on the outside that could potentially get blown up by the exhaust, especially if it's on the bottom of this, because if you leave a lot of dust on here, it can get blown up by the exhaust and be even worse than the already subpar filtration this machine has. So there is no HEPA filter or post-motor filter on this machine, at least not any that is accessible by the end user, but there is one washable filter that's up here. You lift this little latch right here, and this opens up. There's a filter right here. You wash it with water and whatever soap or detergent you want to, and you just let it dry for 24 hours, and you can put it back in. You can also wash this entire bin assembly. This entire middle piece pops out and these two pieces separate. I did a video on cleaning this exact unit if you want to see that. So that just snaps back together and it's very easy. So washing the filter on this is very easy. Still not as simple as changing a bag, but it is there. So as far as other maintenance that you want to have on the machine, if you lower this, we can see the height adjustment in this particular example of the machine is missing, but it normally would have an automatic height adjustment, which does work, kind of, although again, I still think that overall the full-size machines are a better value because they have an actual height adjustment, so you can properly adjust them to your floor surface. This does not have that. It normally just has a little wheel right here that props the vacuum up whenever it's in upright mode, and other than that, doesn't do a whole lot. So I wouldn't recommend using this on any sort of delicate area rugs, as this thing will basically chew right through it. The brush roll on this is pretty powerful for what it is, and this is a belt-driven brush roll, so you will have to replace this belt around every 6 months to a year, depending on how often you use the machine. And the brush roller is relatively easy to access. You have just 5 screws right here that you can pull off if you want to change the belt or clean any hair off the brush roll. It is simple to do, and there's not really much complexity with it. So it is easy to take care of, but it is something you will have to do when you buy a machine this cheap. You will have to maintain it. You can't just vacuum with it and then just stick it in your closet and forget about it. Otherwise the machine will eventually fail and you'll have to well, either fix it, or what many people do is just throw the machine away, which is not something that I support. But I mean, these things are so cheap, plenty of people do that. Really, you really just should maintain it. Just wash this filter and change this belt as needed, and that's all you should need to do, as long as you keep that brush roll clean and don't suck up anything too big that would clog it. Then this machine will easily last for quite a few years. I know some people will argue with that and say that, oh, it's going to randomly explode after 2 months of owning it. That's just simply not true. There are some wear parts on this machine, though. It is not the best in terms of build quality. These handle releases are known to break on a lot of these Bissells, although the one on this model has tended to be pretty solid, so there's really not much there. There are 2 cord hooks, both of which are swivelable, which is a feature that the full-size models don't have. You can swivel both of the cord hooks, which is nice. So if you want to swivel the bottom one and pull the cord off in your hand, you can do that. Or if you want to swivel the top one in order to easily release the cord, you can do that as well. Bissell does make rewind variants of these PowerForce machines, but not in this compact variant. You'd be looking at a PowerForce Turbo Rewind, and those would usually be around $80 to $90, depending on where you find them brand new, or you can sometimes find them used. So if you want a rewind mechanism, this is obviously not the machine to get, but you would pay more money for that sort of feature anyways. So there is that. There's also a power switch right here. Very simple, just push it with your foot. On this particular machine, this is broken. I haven't bothered to fix it yet, and I don't think I'm going to, honestly, because of how cheap these machines go for on the secondhand market. I'm probably just going to give this vacuum away for really cheap. It's currently stuck in the on position, but it does use just a very simple type of switch, so it is easy to change out. The switches are incredibly ubiquitous. These machines are always very easy to find parts for, a lot of these cheaper Bissells, and that is a very nice feature of a lot of Bissell vacuums, is that the parts are very easy to get a hold of, and also very, very cheap. If you lose a screw, or if one of the screws on this machine get rusted out, you can very easily just exchange it for a new screw you can get on Bissell's website for $1 or $2, or buy a set of screws for $5, or if you're missing an attachment, or this cord hook goes missing, anything like that, you can get those parts really easily. If the bottom plate breaks, you can get that very easily too. So there is a lot of repairability on this machine. So if you're not too concerned about build quality, and you're gentle on your machines, and you're just worried about being able to find parts should something actually go wrong, this machine is a solid option in that regard. So there's no real extra features of this. It is a very basic bare bones machine. You're not going to get any headlight. The cord on this compact turbo model is around 23 feet. On the non-turbo model of the compact, it's around 18 feet. So it's not a very usable length of cord, although the turbo is the one that you'd want to get if you're really dead set on this machine and you want a longer cord, because that'll at least give you the same amount of cord as the standard PowerForce Helix that's the same price as this machine. So you do at least get that. So you have a hose back here as well. This hose is just friction fit, pops off just like this, and it does stretch. It is a stretch hose, unlike the original PowerForce Helix, and very similar to the bagged PowerForce. So this is a stretch hose. It has a little notch right here, and what that's for is if you want to actually connect the handle and use it as a telescoping wand. On my unit, this button is also very stiff and doesn't like to come out, so sometimes these buttons do get stuck, but it is supposed to just click just like that, and now you can pull this out. There's a little notch right here on the handle, which this can slip into just like that and twist to lock into place. And now if you want to put any of the attachments, now this particular unit comes with a crevice tool, a dusting brush, and the turbo model is supposed to have a turbo brush right here on a bracket. That is missing. One thing I don't like about that being there is that when you're using this, it does add some extra weight and make it a little bit harder to use. So if you're going to use the turbo variant in above floor mode, I would take off the bracket with the turbo brush on it. But that option is there. Most of these units just come with a very short crevice tool and a dusting and upholstery brush, which of course can attach either directly to the end of this hose or to the end of this wand. So that is one thing that is nice, is since this doesn't have an onboard extension wand like the Helix models, this does have an extension wand that's just built into the cord, and it actually has a nice bend to it. So this does, you can see, like, I can reach the edge of my ceiling fan string right there, whatever this is called, ceiling fan switch. But this hose does not stretch much further than that. But because the machine is very lightweight, this machine only weighs about 7-8 pounds, so it is very easy to pick this up and hold this machine in one hand while you're using the wand with another hand, so that is a nice feature. So you can do that if you want something very lightweight, and the few extra pounds of this machine that it's saving is very important to you, then this could be a good option over the Helix if you do really need that extra weight. The Helix models and the bagged PowerForce in particular are only about 12 pounds, to 12 to 13 pounds depending on what features they have, because obviously all that extra plastic adds weight. But 12 pounds is not a lot for a vacuum, but this particular machine is a little bit lighter, so if you very, very much value weight, if you're coming from an Auric or Simplicity Freedom or something like that, and you're on a strict budget and just want something lightweight that'll still get the carpets clean, this will do the trick. So you can see how lightweight it is. I can just pick it up from the actual hose, and it's not causing an issue whatsoever. So this hose will give you better stretch than the standard PowerForce Helix that has the plastic hose, but it won't be as good of a length as the bagged PowerForce, but it does have the advantage of being smaller, so it is easier to kind of pick it up and go along with you if you're actually wanting to pick it up in order to reach things that are up high, because otherwise this is as far as it'll reach. So it does not reach my ceilings. I can't dust any of those corners or get cobwebs or anything like that unless I pick up the machine, which is perfectly easy to do for me. So I have a bad back and I still have no problems carrying this machine just fine. It doesn't strain me out at all. I can clean the entire house with this, and the weight does not get to be an issue. So if you are concerned about weight to every single possible degree and every pound counts, then this could potentially be a good option as far as a just all-around cheap machine that you don't have to worry about too much and that can still get your cleaning done even without the best performance or filtration. For the price, it can certainly be something that's doable. So now that we've covered the tools usage, the other thing that I will mention that you are going to sacrifice for a machine this cheap is filtration. Now, this is a bagless machine without a HEPA filter or a sealed system, and the seals on the system are already very, very poor out of the box, and the actual tolerances on this machine are not very good either, so you will end up letting some dust through. And if you have allergies or you have asthma or anything like that, or you have pets and you're worried about dander escaping the machine, this is not a good option. Again, use that money, buy the bagged Bissell PowerForce instead, and you can get HEPA bags from companies like CleanView very cheaply, and you can get cloth synthetic HEPA bags, and that'll solve that problem right there. So if filtration is something you value in a machine this cheap, get the bagged PowerForce, end of story. So filtration on this is very poor, but you're not really buying this for good filtration in the first place. But it is one of those things where that's kind of the biggest thing for me. Yeah, sure, build quality and all that stuff can potentially be dealt with, but if the machine is not filtering very well, then you're not really going to have a fun time using it, at least long term. Although, if you do have one of these machines, or you do really want these machines, and your air quality isn't too bad, but you're just worried about this machine, you can certainly get an air purifier or something like that to supplement the machine and all the rooms you'd be using this in, so that way any potential dust that would escape would be caught by the air purifier, at least if it's one that's the proper size for your room. So, if you do really want this and you're worried about filtration, but it's not a life or death issue, then you could certainly get something like an air purifier like this Filtrete that I did a video on a while ago. I did do an unboxing, I didn't do a full review on that, but just as an example, there are air purifiers that you can do and get in order to supplement the filtration on this machine. So if you do want this and you have some issues with filtration on other machines, you're not completely out of options, but this still isn't the best option. But again, for $40, $50, you can't really expect that all that much. So beyond that, there's not much else to talk about. This machine is very basic. There's not a lot of extra little features to discuss, other than, in this case, this handle not wanting to go back in, which can be an issue on these. There we go. So there isn't much else to say about this particular machine, so it seems like the last thing we're going to do is go ahead and run this. I will also say that if you have a clog in this machine, it does have a twist and snap hose, so you can very easily twist this well, easier said than done, but there is a little latch right here, so you can very easily twist this and pull it out, and this hose is very short, so if you have any clogs in here, it is easy to undo clogs and keep this machine running. So it is very simple. There's not much to go wrong on it other than just the build quality and all that stuff. So if you do have some issues with any of those, I would say get one of the full-size models, unless you specifically need something that takes up less space. Maybe you're wanting to utilize taking off the handle for storage purposes. That would be an incentive to go for this. Otherwise, if you don't have that issue, I would say overall get one of the bagged PowerForces instead. And I think that for the vast majority of people, the bagged or even the Helix PowerForce would be money better well spent than this compact variant. So I would not get this compact unless you specifically need a compact, in which case it is certainly a good option when compared to other options from companies like Dirt Devil. It definitely does seem like a decent all-around option. There is also Eureka's Airspeed line, but those are usually a little bit more expensive. So I will likely review one of those at some point. But this is likely going to be the most common, and my overall review on it is if you can deal with a full-size vacuum, get the bagged PowerForce instead, or even the Helix if you're dead set on bagless. If you are going to get the Helix, I would say spend the extra money and get the Helix Turbo. It is only a few bucks. Or you can even get the Turbo Rewind if you want this same green color scheme, but in a machine that's a little bit more full-size, a little bit more features. So overall, these machines are fine in a pinch. I wouldn't personally use it as a daily driver, although I can get by in this house since all the rooms are pretty small. And one advantage of this is if you are a person who needs to get into all sorts of small areas that a full-size machine wouldn't really get into, then that would be another incentive to go for this machine. So, anyways, we're going to run this real quick and finish up this review. Now again, power switch is busted on this particular model. Obviously, if you buy one in the shops, you're not going to have that problem. So, yeah. Now is the part where I also talk about a few different things that I forgot during the initial portion, so hopefully you stayed until the end, so that way you can see that as well. One advantage to this machine over the main PowerForces is that, well, at least in theory, there should be a squeegee on the bottom of this that would allow it to clean a little bit better on bare floors. It is missing on this machine, so if it's missing on yours, then obviously that wouldn't really be an advantage. So the idea is that the squeegee is supposed to help it from scattering debris, and yeah, so this does not have a squeegee, so don't use this on bare floors unless you actually invest in some extra wands and a bare floor tool to attach to the hose. But with that extra money, you could have just bought a more full-size machine in the first place that'd be a little bit more well suited towards bare floor pickup, because since this is belt driven and it's a rubber stretch belt, there are no ways to shut off the brush, which also means when you're using the tools, you want to make sure this isn't leaning forward and burning on your carpet, which you'll hear it. You could hear it at first how it made that whirring noise. So you'll tell when that's happening, but that is another thing you want to keep in mind so you don't get it caught on anything on your carpet while you're using the tools. Another reason why I personally just pick up the machine, since it is relatively lightweight and easy to do. So anyways, this is Untitled Studios signing out. This is my full review of the Bissell PowerForce Compact Turbo. I hope you guys enjoyed this review, and I hope you found it helpful, and I'll see you guys in the next video. If you guys like this video, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel to see more vacuum reviews and repair videos and all sorts of other things as well. This is Untitled Studios signing out, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good one. Peace.